If anyone had told me that love could turn to dust in a single afternoon, I would have laughed. But that was before the day I opened my husband's phone. I remember that day clearly, the way the air smelled of rain, the quiet hum of our ceiling fan, the soft laughter of my 2 sons playing in the sitting room. Everything looked normal, ordinary, until it wasn't. It started with a message, one that wasn't meant for me. A simple text from a woman I had never heard of. "Last night was beautiful. You make me feel alive again." At first, I froze. My mind didn't even process the words. I just stared at them like they were part of someone else's story. Then, slowly, the meaning sank in. And when it did, it felt like the ground shifted beneath me. I remember calling his name. My voice came out calm, too calm. "Emeka," I said, holding the phone up like evidence in a courtroom. "Who is this?" He looked at me once, then at the phone, then away. That silence, it said everything. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just sat there, staring at the floor, and whispered, "It was a mistake." A mistake. That word echoed in my chest, loud and painful. 5 years of marriage. 2 children. Countless prayers. A home we built with dreams and sacrifices. All reduced to a mistake. I remember walking into the bathroom and locking the door, because I didn't want my boys to see me break. I sat on the cold tiles, crying quietly, asking myself how long it had been going on, what I had done wrong, what I could have done differently. And somewhere in the middle of those tears, something hardened inside me. Not hate, not yet. Just clarity. I deserved better. When I stepped out, I already knew what I would do. I started packing. Not out of anger, but with the calm resolve of a woman who had reached her limit. He followed me, begging. "Please, Neka, it was one time. Don't do this. Don't destroy our family." But what he didn't understand was that the family was already broken. I was just acknowledging it. My mother called that evening, her voice trembling. "Don't act in anger, my daughter," she said. "Men make mistakes. You have children to think of." I knew she meant well. Everyone did. My aunties, my cousins, even my pastor, they all said the same thing: forgive him. It's not worth throwing away your marriage. But they didn't see what I saw when I looked at him, the cracks, the distance, the quiet betrayal that had been sitting between us for months, waiting to be exposed. That night, I slept on the couch, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't bear to lie beside him. In the morning, before the sun came up, I dressed my boys, packed our bags, and left. We moved in with my cousin for a while. It was supposed to be temporary, just until I could figure things out. But those first few weeks felt like freedom and grief mixed together. Freedom because I could finally breathe without waiting for an apology that never came. Grief because every corner of my new room reminded me of what I had lost: a husband, a home, a future I once believed in. At night, when the boys were asleep, I'd sit by the window scrolling through old photos on my phone. Smiling faces, birthdays, our first car, our honeymoon in Calabar, memories that now felt like lies. He called every day. Sometimes crying, sometimes angry, sometimes just quiet, breathing on the phone like he wanted me to feel his regret. "Neka, I can't live without you," he said one night. But I was tired of words. Apologies don't rebuild trust. Flowers don't erase betrayal. And promises mean nothing when the same mouth once told you lies. I had seen women before me forgive and shrink, women who took back their cheating husbands and lost themselves in the process. I refused to be one of them. So I blocked his number. It wasn't easy. I had 2 children, no job, and bills staring at me. But somehow, I pushed through. I started baking from home, small cakes, meat pies, chin-chin. I sold to neighbors, friends, anyone who cared to buy. I rented a small one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The first night we slept there, on a mattress laid on the bare floor, my eldest son looked at me and said, "Mummy, are we happy now?" I smiled and said yes, but my heart whispered, "I don't know." Because truthfully, I wasn't happy, I was just surviving. Then came the loneliness. The kind that sneaks in quietly after the chaos has settled. It wasn't about missing him, it was about missing what we used to be. The shared jokes, the late-night talks, the comfort of knowing someone had your back. Everywhere I looked, I saw couples, at the market, at church, even on TV. And each time, a small voice inside me asked, did I make a mistake? But then I'd remember that message, that look on his face, and I'd tell myself, no. You made a choice. A hard one, but the right one. He didn't give up easily. For almost a year, he tried everything, sent money for the kids, visited their school, brought gifts, even begged my family to talk to me. He would show up at my mother's house, sit outside for hours, waiting for me to come out. Sometimes I pitied him. Other times, I felt anger bubbling again. Because where was this energy when I was crying myself to sleep? My mother softened. "He is still your husband," she said one afternoon. "No man is perfect. Don't let pride destroy your home." That word, pride, it stung. Because deep down, I wasn't sure if I was being strong or just stubborn. But then I'd see my children sleeping peacefully, away from the fights and tension, and I'd remind myself, I'm doing this for them. A year passed. He still hadn't moved on, and I still hadn't gone back. People started talking. Some said I was proud. Others said I was foolish. A few even said I must have found another man. But the truth was simpler, I just couldn't trust him again. Every time I imagined going back, I saw that text message, that tiny sentence that changed everything. It was around this time I started to heal, or at least I thought I was. I laughed again. I dressed up again. I went out with friends. I told myself I was ready for a new chapter. I didn't know then that the next chapter of my life would test me in ways I never imagined. Because love wasn't done with me yet. Neither was heartbreak. That day, the day I walked away, remains one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. Not because I doubted my worth, but because I finally learned that loving yourself sometimes means breaking your own heart. People said I'd regret it. That I'd grow old and lonely. That I'd crawl back one day. I smiled and said nothing. Because deep down, I believed life would reward me for my strength. I believed there was something better waiting on the other side of pain. I just didn't know that better doesn't always mean easier. When you leave a man, people think what you miss most is the person. But what I missed was the attention. The calls. The laughter. The way someone would ask, "Have you eaten?" or "How was your day?" After a while, you realize how quiet life becomes when no one is checking up on you. At first, I told myself I didn't need love again. That I'd focus on my children, my business, and God. I joined a women's fellowship, started saving for a shop, and began posting photos of my cakes online. That's how I met him, Tund. He had ordered a birthday cake for his wife. I remember writing, "Happy Birthday," catchy, on top in pink frosting. He came to pick it up himself, and when he smiled at me, it was the kind of smile that stays a little too long. "Your cakes look better than the ones from those big bakeries," he said. I laughed. "Thank you. I'm still learning." That day, he paid extra. The next week, he ordered again, this time, not for a birthday. "For my office," he said. But later, he admitted it was just an excuse to see me. It started innocently. He'd stop by now and then, help me restock flour, fix the broken shelf in my kitchen, talk about business and family. He was older, soft-spoken, and kind. The kind of man who opened doors and listened when you talked. I told him my story one evening, how my marriage ended, how I was trying to rebuild. He listened quietly, then said, "You're a strong woman. You deserve peace." I remember thinking, maybe God sent him. But God doesn't send you someone else's husband. When he confessed he was married, I told him to leave. He left, for 2 days. Then he came back, saying things like, "You're not a mistake, Neka. You're what I prayed for." At first, I resisted. I didn't want to be that woman. But he treated me like I mattered again. After so long of being invisible, it felt good to be seen. He'd send food, gifts for my boys, even pay for their school fees. I knew it was wrong, but my heart softened. He said his marriage was over, that they only stayed together for the children. I believed him, or maybe I wanted to. For a while, I felt happy. I dressed up again. I laughed again. I even started going out. But happiness built on lies never lasts. One morning, there was a loud knock on my door. I opened it to see a woman, heavily pregnant, her face tight with anger. "Are you Neka?" she asked. Before I could speak, she spat on the floor and said, "Stay away from my husband." She stormed into my compound, shouting for everyone to hear. "Shameless woman! You're sleeping with a married man. God will judge you." Neighbors peeked through their windows. I felt the world closing in. By the time she left, I was shaking. I tried to call him, but his number was switched off. He disappeared, just like that. Days turned into weeks. He never called again. That humiliation broke something in me. Not just because of the shame, but because I realized I had become the very thing I once hated, the woman who helped another woman cry. I promised myself never again. No more married men. No more promises dressed as love. After that, I focused on work. I expanded my little business, started supplying snacks to a few schools, and for the first time, I began to feel independent. But loneliness has a way of sneaking back when you least expect it. It comes in quiet evenings after the kids are asleep, when the only sound in your room is the ticking wall clock. That was when Chike came along. He wasn't like Tund. He was younger, playful, full of dreams. He was a graphics designer who worked from his laptop at a cafe near my shop. We became friends, no pressure, no secrets. He'd come by after work, help me pack orders, tell jokes that made my stomach hurt from laughing. He wasn't rich, but he was present. For the first time, I felt like maybe I could start over properly. He met my kids, and they adored him. He'd bring small gifts, comic books, a football, sweets. He talked about marriage, about building a future together. And just when I allowed myself to believe again, reality struck. Money. Things got tough. My supplier raised prices, and customers slowed down. Rent was due, and I was struggling. I told him about it, hoping for encouragement. Instead, he grew distant. Calls became shorter. Visits became excuses. Then one morning, I woke up to a message, "I'm sorry, Neka. I think we want different things." That was it. No phone call. No goodbye. Just silence. For weeks, I replayed everything in my mind, wondering what I'd done wrong. But the truth is, love alone doesn't feed a man. And maybe he realized he wasn't ready to carry another woman's burden, a woman with 2 children, rent to pay, and a past that came with shadows. It hurt, but this time, I didn't cry. I just accepted it. Because by then, I was beginning to understand something. Men love the idea of a strong woman, until they realize how heavy her strength actually is. Months passed. I worked, I prayed, I raised my children. Then came Al-Haji. He was wealthy, well-dressed, and confident, the kind of man whose presence filled a room. He had seen me at a wedding and later got my number through a friend. He didn't waste time. He sent flowers to my shop, visited often, and spoke like a man who knew what he wanted. "I want to take care of you," he said. "You've suffered enough." At first, I laughed it off. I told him I wasn't interested. But he was persistent. He said he was divorced, that he wanted a good woman, someone decent to build a future with. It sounded too good to be true, and it was. After 2 months of talking, he brought up marriage. My heart raced. For the first time in years, I thought maybe this was it, the happy ending I had prayed for. Then he added, casually, "But you'll have to send your boys to live with their father. I can't raise another man's children." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But he was serious. He said, "It's not that I don't love children, but I can't carry another man's load. I want to start my own family with you." Those words hit harder than betrayal ever did. Because this time, it wasn't about lies, it was about the truth of who I was. A mother. And to love me meant loving them too. I told him, "Then it's over." He tried to convince me, said I was letting emotions ruin my chance at comfort, that I'd regret it one day. But I couldn't trade my children for luxury. I had already lost too much of myself in the name of love. I wasn't losing my motherhood too. After Al-Haji, I stopped trying. I deleted my dating apps, stopped answering late-night messages, stopped hoping every kind gesture meant something more. My heart was tired. Tired of beginnings that led to nowhere. Tired of being someone's temporary peace while they looked for something else. So I built walls, tall ones. People said I had changed. They were right. I had become cautious, colder, maybe even bitter. But behind that bitterness was exhaustion, the exhaustion of giving everything and still ending up alone. Sometimes, when my boys asked about their father, I'd tell them he was doing fine, that he still loved them. They'd smile, and I'd smile back, even though deep down, I wasn't sure I still believed in love anymore. Still, every night before I slept, I'd whisper a prayer, "God, if love still exists, let it find me clean. Not broken, not desperate, just ready." But love didn't come again. At least, not the way I expected. Because 3 years later, something else happened, something that made me question everything I thought I knew about pride, forgiveness, and second chances. It was the morning I decided to go back. They say time heals everything. But nobody tells you that time also blurs things, faces, memories, even pain. It had been 3 years since I walked out of my marriage. 3 years since I packed my bags, took my boys, and told myself I would never look back. And yet, one morning, I woke up and couldn't stop thinking about him. I don't even know what triggered it. Maybe it was a song on the radio, maybe it was the way my younger son had started asking about his father again, or maybe it was just loneliness finally catching up with me. Whatever it was, I couldn't shake it off. For the first time in years, I wondered how he was doing. Was he still alone? Did he still think about me? Did he still love me? That morning, I sat on the edge of my bed, watching sunlight spill through the curtains, and asked myself a question I had avoided for so long. What if I was wrong? What if walking away wasn't strength? What if it was pride wearing the mask of courage? He had begged for a whole year. He had cried in front of my family. He had tried, over and over again. But I never looked back. Not even once. Now, after everything, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the loneliness, I started to wonder, what if I had forgiven him back then? Would my life have been different? Would I have peace now? I sat there for a long time, until something inside me whispered, go. It wasn't logic. It wasn't desperation. It just felt right. Maybe it was time to forgive. Maybe it was time to rebuild what life had scattered. I got dressed quietly, wore a simple gown, and packed a small bag, just in case. The children were at their grandmother's place for the weekend, so I didn't tell anyone where I was going. As I walked down the street to get a bus, my heart beat faster with every step. I kept replaying how it might go. Maybe he'd open the door, shocked but happy. Maybe he'd pull me into his arms, and we'd cry and start again. For the first time in years, I felt hope. When I got to his house, it was early. The street was still quiet, and the air smelled of dew and dust. I hesitated at the gate, my palms sweating. Then I knocked. A few seconds passed. Then I heard footsteps. The door creaked open. And a woman, young, visibly pregnant, stood there. She looked at me with polite confusion. "Yes? Can I help you?" For a moment, I thought I had the wrong house. I even looked around, checking the number painted on the wall. But no, it was his house. Our old house. I stammered, I'm looking for Emeka." Her face softened a little. "Oh," she said with a small smile. "He just went to drop the kids at school. Do you want to come in? He'll be back soon." I froze. "The kids?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she said, patting her belly. "My 2 stepchildren. They live with us now." The world went quiet. Stepchildren. It took a few seconds for the words to sink in, and when they did, I felt something break inside me. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know that the woman standing before her was the one who had walked out of that same house 3 years ago. All I could do was smile weakly and say, "No, thank you. I'll come back later." Then I turned around and walked away before my legs gave out. I don't remember how I got home that day. All I remember is sitting on my bed, staring at the wall, my heart heavy with something I couldn't name. He had moved on. He had built a new life. He had done what I refused to do, start again. And strangely, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty. For years, I had convinced myself that leaving him was strength. That I had done what was right. That I had protected my dignity. But sitting there that afternoon, I realized something no one ever told me: pride and pain can look the same from a distance. Because maybe, just maybe, I could have forgiven him. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. That night, I went to pick my boys from my mother's house. When they saw me, they ran to hug me, laughing and shouting, "Mummy!" And for a moment, their joy dulled my sorrow. But then my elder son said something that made me pause. "Daddy's wife bought us new school bags," he said proudly. "She's really nice." I smiled and nodded. "That's good, baby. That's very good." Inside, I was breaking all over again. Because I realized life had moved on, for all of us. And maybe, in its own painful way, that was how it was meant to be. Weeks passed, and I tried to adjust. But something in me changed that day. I stopped blaming him. I stopped blaming myself. I just accepted. Because sometimes, life doesn't give you closure, it gives you a mirror. A mirror that forces you to see your own mistakes, your stubbornness, your fears. I realized that forgiveness isn't always about another person. Sometimes, it's about freeing yourself from the version of you that refused to bend. It's been over 10 years now. I'm no longer the woman who turned heads. I'm no longer the one with admirers or suitors. These days, I wake early, make breakfast, go to work, and come home to an empty house. My boys now live with their father. They wanted to, and I couldn't stop them. They're doing well. Their stepmother treats them kindly, and that's all that matters to me. As for me, I'm still learning to make peace with time. I still bake. I still smile. I still pray. But there are nights when I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering where it all went wrong. Sometimes, I think of that morning when I walked out, how certain I was that I was doing the right thing. Other times, I think of that pregnant woman opening my old door, her hand resting gently on her belly, and I realize, life doesn't wait for anyone. It moves. It rebuilds. It replaces. And if you're not careful, it leaves you behind. Would I do it differently if I had the chance? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't regret leaving, I regret not healing sooner. I regret letting pride speak louder than compassion. I regret not forgiving, not because he deserved it, but because I did. But that's life, isn't it? You only understand the full lesson when it's too late to retake the test. Now, when young women come to me with their own heartbreak stories, I don't tell them what to do. I just tell them this. Think carefully. Sometimes walking away is strength. Sometimes it's just pride wearing a new dress. Know which one is speaking before you close the door. Because I've learned, painfully, that life does not always give you a second chance. Sometimes, pride takes what pain never could.